the previous chapter electrochemistry. After discussion about the corrosion and their related markers, now today we want to introduce the new chapter. They are also very important for the CBSE purpose and having the about 5 marks questions. That chapter becomes the chemical kinetics. So now today we begin the concept of chemical kinetics. One thing, firstly we can say that our student, actually that chemical kinetics comes from the class 11 chapter chemical equilibrium. That places we discuss the number of things about the rate of reactions and their relation with the concentration, as well as discuss about the law of mass actions. But in these chapters we completely discuss the new concept about the chemical reactions. So now we begin. Firstly we discuss the certain introduction about the chemical kinetics. So okay students, now listen carefully. Firstly the discussion about the chemical kinetics. One thing student, we discuss the number of chapters. Each and every chapter discusses some aspect about the chemical reactions. Suppose that for the simple understanding, when we discuss about the thermodynamics, various things must be discussed, but we generally classify the chemical reaction like the exothermic, endothermic, etc. When we discuss about the chemical equilibrium, that places we discuss about the reversible process and irreversible process. That means various chapters discuss the number of things about the chemical reactions, but not a single chapter discusses about the velocity of any chemical reactions. So discussing about the velocity, rate of any chemical reactions, new branch of chemistry must be needed to account them. So in this chapter we discuss about this concept. So it is necessary when we start to any new chapter, what the concept as is shadowly present in chemical kinetics or in that chapter. So firstly we want to account the what do you mean by chemical kinetics. Various things, various aspects, various parameters are present. But firstly we simply can say that those branch of chemistry which actually deals about the rate, velocity of any chemical reactions as well as mechanism of that chemical reactions is commonly given the name as a chemical kinetics. Again we repeat the one thing. You remember like this. What do you mean by the concept about the chemical kinetics? Very simple, we can say that the branch of chemistry which actually deals with the velocity, rate of any chemical reactions, as well as we can say that the factor which will influence the rate of any chemical reactions and also the mechanism of the any complex reaction, and ultimately also able to account if any reaction become complex must be done in various steps, which steps is considered either a rate determining step or rate controlling steps, given the name here as a chemical kinetics. So I just sum up, you remember these chapters like this. Those branch of chemistry actually discuss deeply about velocity, rate of any chemical reaction, factor influencing the rate of reactions, ultimately the mechanism of any complex reaction. What do you mean by here mechanism? They must be done one steps or various steps. So simply we can say that mechanism of the reactions, and even say about in that mechanism which steps is considered as a rate determining step called as chemical kinetics. After these things, before we enter this chapter, firstly similar like the solid state solution and electrochemistry, for each understanding again we classify these chapters in a number of phases. That means how we start to discuss this chapter by dividing in number of parts for each understanding, and we must be comparable them to the chapters or question asked from the CBSE and related with the competitive examination. For this purpose, these chapters actually divided by me for your easy understanding in a 4 phases. That means in first, that means phase of the chemical kinetic, that means parameter of the chemical kinetic, in which we study one by one. Number of topics belong from them in the following headings. The phase first actually consists about the concept of rate of reaction. What is the first phase? The concept of rate of reaction, in which we discuss about the fast reaction, slow reaction, moderate reaction. What do you mean by rate of reactions? What is the relative rate of reaction? What type of rate of reaction must be present? What is the unit about the rate of reactions? Ultimately, how can we able to measure? There are two types, like average rate of reaction, instantaneous rate of reaction, by the help of the graphical representation, slope of tangent, etc. And ultimately, we discuss about the factor influencing the rate of reaction. This topic must be consistent in the first phase, known as concept of rate of reaction. Second, you see here the concept of dependence of the reaction rate on concentration. Actually, about the third, fourth of these chapters are depends upon the factor influencing, like a concentration towards the rate of reaction. That means the rate of reaction must be more broadly influenced by the concentration of the reactant. So we discuss in second phase concept of dependence of reaction rate on concentration. Another way we can say that effect of concentration over the rate of reactions. This phase consists of most important things about, like law of mass action, we discussed in class 11 in chemical equilibrium, rate equations, ultimately order of reaction, molecularity of the reactions, we as well as how can we determine the order of reaction, and also we can say that certain integrated rate equation for zero order and first order. We discuss this thing in second phase. Third phase, the concept of temperature dependence of rate of reaction. Another language, the collision theory and Arrhenius equations. In this page, we discuss the effect of temperature over the rate of reactions, temperature coefficient, and ultimately the collision theory and activation energy, threshold energy, and we can able to derive a mathematical equation, Arrhenius equations, which actually account the effect of temperature over the rate of reaction. So we must be discuss these things in a third phase, concept of temperature dependence of the rate of reaction and collision theory and Arrhenius equation. And the last phase consists of certain notes like materials. So we given here the fourth phase, concept of reaction mechanism and other important topics. In these things we also discuss the number of important things about, even we able to discuss about the photochemical reactions, photosynthesization, etc. As well as what how can you discuss about the mechanism of the complex reaction, rate controlling steps. By the help of these things, how can we able to determine order of reaction and molecularity of any complex reaction. So this thing must be discussed in concept of reaction mechanism and other important topics. So I just summarize, we can say that this chapter must be discussed in 4 phases. First page, concept of rate of reaction. Second, concept of effect of concentration over the rate of reaction. Third, concept of effect of temperature over the rate of reaction. And last, reaction mechanism. So okay student, we given the introduction about these things. So now we start the first page. So you see here the first page. First page we discuss about the concept of rate of reaction. We begin from the introduction about the chemical kinetics. We already given the definition, those branch of chemistry which deals the rate velocity of any chemical reactions, as well as we can say that factor influencing the rate of reactions, and moreover about the mechanism of the reactions, and also at last simply we can say that those steps in a given mechanism are considered the rate controlling step. So these are the chemical kinetics. Secondly, when we start to the concept about the rate of reactions. So before these things, it is necessary. What is the meaning about here? The rate of reaction, velocity of the reaction. So on the basis of chemical kinetics, which deals about the rate of any chemical reaction, normally we can see that the chemical reaction is classified in a two types. First is called as the fast reaction, another is called as the slow reactions. But more broadly, if the fast reaction discussed in a two way, one is given the name as instantaneous rate of instantaneous reaction, and second is called as the fast reaction. Slow reaction again classified in two way, slow reactions and very slow reactions. But I just sum up for discussion about the more broadly, we classify the type of reaction, that classification of reactions on the basis of chemical kinetics into three categories. One is called a very fast reaction, second is called a very slow reactions, and third is known as simply we can say that moderate reaction. That means measurable period of times in which we discuss about the rate of any chemical reaction, measurable of speed like this. So firstly we want to define the fast reaction or instantaneous reaction. Very simple, student. You see the one thing here. We discuss here now the fast reaction or instantaneous rate of reaction. Simply instantaneous reaction. So we can say that those chemical reactions must be taken place during the interaction of the reacting species are given the name as a fast reaction. Again we repeat. Those chemical reactions which occurs during the interaction of the reacting species is given the name as a fast reaction. Very fast reaction here given in the term of like instantaneous reaction. Those chemical reaction must be begins when time approaches to zero is given the name as instantaneous rate of reaction. That means those chemical reactions must be occurs accidentally, like when time approaches to zero is given the name as instantaneous reaction. For example, ignition of phosphorus. When phosphorus is taken from dark places to light places, they start to burning, they start to ignite. Any accident must be taken place during the time approach to zero. This type of reaction is given the name as instantaneous reaction. The first reaction, you when see these things in laboratory. When if you want to determine the presence of any halide ions in a given salt solution, when we added a little amount of aqueous solution of AgNO3 in aqueous solution of salt, we see that even given one or two drops on them, the precipitated, if the chloride ion, bromide ion or iodide ion present, they start to precipitate. So this type of reactions is known as the fast reactions. You even see here the examples. Here the examples now. Again we repeat the firstly, the fast reaction. Those chemical reactions must be taken very small interval of time. Is known as fast reaction, and even those chemical reactions occurs when time approaches to zero is known as instantaneous rate of reaction. So certain examples like you see in the laboratory, even we added AgNO3 in aqueous NaCl. We see here the white PPT. What? White PPT occurs immediately due to the formation of AgCl and ultimately NaNO3 is obtained as a byproduct. That type of chemical reactions become very fast or fast reactions. Secondly, you see here the slow reactions. We have classified the slow reaction in the two ways. One is called here the moderate reactions, another is called the very slow reactions. Actually, the slow reactions become various two ways. Those chemical reactions must be taken within certain specified period of time, that means certain long period of time. For example, we can say the rusting of iron. But certain chemical reactions are even occurs in very long period of time. So they are very slowest reactions. But here we discuss the slow reaction in two manner. One is known as moderate, another is known as slow reaction. You see here the examples. Firstly, the moderate chemical reaction. Number of chemical reactions are present, which considered as a moderate chemical reaction, in which we measure these things as a measurable speed of time. neither very slow nor very fast, are actually given the name as a moderate chemical reactions. Certain examples are like hydrolysis of ester, hydrolysis of cane sugar, decomposition of nitrogen pentoxide, etc. Now here we given the one examples of moderate chemical reaction. You see here the hydrolysis of ester. That means if we take any ester, for example, you see here CH3, COO, C2H5 and undergo hydrolysis in the presence of certain mineral acid, dilute mineral acid here, they decomposes into corresponding carboxylic acid and alcohol. These reactions actually occurs here in a measurable period of time. So that type of chemical reactions is actually here considered as a moderate chemical reactions. You see the next things here, very slow reactions. Those chemical reactions must be occurs by taking the time intervals like we can see that 1 hour, 1 day, even 1 month, like these things. That type of reaction here given the name as a very slow reaction. For example, rusting of iron is a very slow reactions. If maybe want to observe, we observe these things in a very long period of times. So these are the concept about the what type of chemical reactions occurs on the basis of chemical kinetics. So these are only the introduction about this thing. Actually, student, these chapters begin from the concept of rate of reaction. So now we begin these chapters from the concept of rate of reactions. So now you see here the rate of reactions. What? Rate of reaction. Actually, this chapter and first page begin from the concept of rate of reactions. What do you mean by here rate? We already say in the beginning, rate means here the velocity. And in physics, you already study the velocity speed like this. Displacement per unit time is known as velocity and distance traveled per unit time like the speeds. So by the help of taking the concept about the velocity and speed from the physics, here we want to account the rate of any chemical reaction. Also the one things here, rate of reaction is also account in number of ways. Various definitions are present about the rate of reactions. Simply, in general sense, we can say that the change in amount of any chemical species per unit time is known as rate of reactions or velocity of reaction. Listen again. In general sense, we can say that the change in amount of any chemical species, may be reactant or product, per unit time is known as rate of reactions or velocity of reaction. But in chemistry, normally amount, in place of amount, we use the term like a concentration, molar concentration, etc. So the common definition about the rate of reaction becomes like this. You also see here. So what is the definition about the rate of chemical reactions? Then we given the more definition about, but firstly you see here. What is the definition about the rate of reaction? The change in molar concentration of reactant or product per unit time rate of reaction. Again we repeat here. The change in molar concentration of the reactant per unit time is known as rate of reaction. But now we want to count the rate of reactions in various manner or even related with their mathematical treatment. What do you mean here the change in concentration? Change in concentration means the concentration of any one of the species decreases or another species must be increased. In another language we can say that change in concentration means concentration of certain chemical species must be disappeared during the passage of time, and secondly the concentration of certain chemical species must be appears during the passage of time. So if you want to relate these things, the rate of any chemical reaction is also a count in a various manner. You understand these things? Now we given the various definition about the rate of reaction. We already given the two definitions, but now we given another certain definition. Firstly, we can say that the decrease in concentration of reactant per unit time is also called as rate of any chemical reaction. In another language, we can say that the increase in concentration of product per unit time is known as rate of reactions. If you want to count these things in another manner, you again say the disappearance of concentration of reactant per unit time is known as rate of reactions. In another word, we can say that the appearance of concentration of product per unit time is known as the rate of chemical reaction. If you want to summarize them, very simple, we can say that they also used in mathematical treatment. The change in molar concentration of reactant per unit time is defined like this. The decrease in concentration of reactant or increase in concentration of product per unit time is known as rate of reactions. Next, the disappearance in concentration of reactant or appearance in concentration of product per unit time is known as rate of reaction. So these are the various definitions about the rate of reaction. We feel you must be understand and able to count the rate of reaction in various ways. So now we discuss quickly their mathematical treatment. And we next classes we discuss about the relative rate of reaction, but we want to quickly introduce the concept about the mathematical treatment of a rate of reactions. Let us suppose that for the mathematical treatment, let us suppose that a small r here is the rate of reaction. Rate of reaction. Here let us consider R is the rate of reactions or rate of any chemical reaction. C is the concentration, or even we can say that molar concentration of chemical species. That chemical species may be reactant or product. Again here you see we given the two sample delta C or dt, because later we discuss they become two types, that is known as change in concentration. What? Change in concentration. May be large or very infinitely small. We discuss the next thing. Here the time taken. They become time approaches to 0, or even we can say that specified period of time or elapsed of times. And we again use here the two sample delta t and dt, that in time interval. That means time taken during the course of any chemical reaction. Thus, from the definition you see above, the change in molar concentration of reactant product per unit time is called as a rate of reaction. So mathematically we can say that here the rate of reactions becomes equal to decrease in concentration of reactant or increase in concentration of product divided by the time taken. What? Again we repeat the mathematical treatment like this. Rate of reactions become equal to change in concentration of chemical species divided by time taken, equal to decrease in concentration of reactant or product, or decrease in concentration of reactant or increase in concentration of product divided by time taken. Next, disappearance of concentration of reactant or appearance of concentration of product divided by time taken. So if these things must be like this, you see here the mathematical treatment. Rate of reactions R becomes equal to here, you see here R becomes equal to minus delta C by delta T, and also given as a sample, or written like this, R equal to minus plus dc by dt. These are mathematical treatment. Rate of reaction R equal to minus plus delta C by delta T, or R equal to minus plus dc by dt. Here delta C we already see change in concentration of reactant or product in form of decrease or increase in concentration divided by delta T. That means T2 minus your final time and initial time. They are also written like R equal to minus plus dc by dt. We discuss this thing in next classes for a different manner, like average rate of reaction and instantaneous rate of reaction. Ultimately, if you want to write these things in a different manner for reactant and product, they may be written like this. You see here, they may be written like this. R equal to, for reactant you see here, R equal to minus delta C by delta T equal to minus dc by dt. And in a case of product, it can be expressed like R equal to plus delta C by delta T equal to plus dc by delta T. So here one question arises in your mind, why sir uses the symbol like negative and positive? They have greater significance, but we will discuss these things in the next class. So these are the introduction about the rate of reactions, that means chemical kinetics. So okay student, various things must be discussed in this class. You must wait for the next topic. What thing must be taught in the next classes. If you have any query, you may be use my website and given various experts in that places, as well as apps used for this purpose, and ask the question related with these topics. So we want to close this topic today. Till goodbye and thanks.